The Baltimore Ravens bullied the Dallas Cowboys in a major upset weekend in the NFL. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert Damian Parson. We are breaking down a major upset weekend in the NFL. We got the Eagles making a big statement against the Saints. We got two teams on life support, the Broncos and Panthers, finding a way to get a dub. And then, of course, we have the Baltimore Ravens and the Minnesota Vikings making a major statement. Before we get into it all, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day. Thank you for being an everydayer here with us on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. Make sure that you tune in later to the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL and step into the barbershop with Tony Wiggins. Today's edition of Locked On NFL is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Dame, what an insane weekend in the NFL. Week 3, a ton of upsets. Teams on life support making their way. But, of course, we're starting with the Baltimore Ravens, who go into Dallas and bully the Cowboys. The Ravens run the ball 45 out of 60 snaps on offense. This truly was an old-school Baltimore Ravens attack. Let's hear from Kevin Ostreicher from Locked On Ravens as he recaps the victory.
The Baltimore Ravens turn a pretty win ugly against the Dallas Cowboys. I am Kevin Ostreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. 28-25, the final score in Week 3. The Ravens seemed to have this game all wrapped up in a bow for a victory, but they were outscored 19-0 in the fourth quarter for another near collapse. Couple of clutch plays from Lamar Jackson saved them, and Lamar only threw the ball 15 total times in this game. It was the ground game that was the bread and butter for Baltimore's offense. Derrick Henry had 25 carries for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Kyle Van Noy had 2 sacks to continue his strong start to the season, but Baltimore was not better in the penalty department. 11 penalties in Week 2. 13 of them in Week 3, but the Ravens do improve their record to 1-2 and have a big Sunday night tilt with Buffalo on the docket next in Week 4. For more on the Ravens and their big Week 3 win over Dallas, be sure to check out the Locked On Ravens podcast and subscribe on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcast Network.
You know what, Dame? Kevin's right. They had a pretty win and they turned it ugly. That's a great way to explain it. But dang it, the Baltimore Ravens just needed a win. They were 0-2. Coming off that loss to the Raiders where they collapsed at the end. Yeah, you kind of had those vibes. But the Baltimore Ravens had to have this game, and they were able to secure it, again, in classic Baltimore fashion. So it may not have been pretty, but a dub is a dub, and the Ravens couldn't go to 0-3.
No, they could not have. And what I appreciate is Lamar Jackson being the difference maker late, right? When you have a quarterback like this, a star quarterback that you're paying a lot of money to, you have to be the deciding factor in some of these games. And he got a lot of flack for the Week 1 loss to Kansas City, which I always go back to. I'm blaming Zay Flowers for not sitting down in that zone where like he was supposed to, right? We saw Rashad Bateman in this game catch a touchdown. Why? Because he sat down in the zone, in the void, right? But Lamar Jackson understanding that, and it wasn't even anything that offense was doing wrong. You had Dallas score, then kick an onside kick, goes through Zay Flowers' hands, they recover, and you just give them more life. You put more juice into the tube of this life support that they were on in the fourth quarter, and then they start making their comeback. But at 25-28, with just you needed to get a first down. You run a QB keeper, power up the middle with Lamar Jackson, fakes it, off the jet sweep, and he gets it, right? And he gets upfield, he gets the first down, and he ends this game. That's what you need to do. Yes, it was not pretty. It should have been pretty, You know what I mean? But you have, for me, I look at Harbaugh, the head coach. What is your message now going into to practice this week, into film study? Something needs to be said. I saw a tweet that Marlon Humphrey, the cornerback for the Baltimore Ravens, was on IG Live trying to celebrate. And I love this. Lamar Jackson was basically telling them, get off live. There's nothing to celebrate. We are 1-2. Like, we nearly blew this game. And that type of leadership, that's championship level leadership, because there's no reason to be doing these things. So, like, I love that. And for Harbaugh, go into this week and get these guys on the right, have the right mindset. Let's stop with the self-inflicted penalties and self-inflicted wounds. Let's go out here. We cannot do this against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football. When it matters, we need to go out here. If we get up 21, let's go ahead and pound them into the dirt, and let's walk out of here with the W.
Yeah, they need to be much more locked in. And you're right. That's a good point about Lamar's leadership there. He's like, job's not finished. This wasn't a great performance. We got to be better. I like seeing him locked in. But speaking of locked in, the Minnesota Vikings moved to 3-0. Sam Darnold, 4 touchdown passes. We're going to hear from Luke Braun, my guy, the brain, Luke Braun from Locked On Vikings.
Holy crap, the Vikings might be for real. A 34-7 drumming of the Houston Texans at home. What's up, everybody? I'm Luke Braun. I do Locked On Vikings. And the Vikings go to a stylish 3-0 in their throwback uniforms by destroying the Houston Texans. That is a Super Bowl contending team, by the way. Everybody agrees that the Houston Texans are like one of the teams to watch in the AFC. They show up to US Bank Stadium and the Vikings kick the crap out of them in every phase. Interceptions, touchdowns, breakaway runs for Aaron Jones, who goes over 100 yards, 4 passing touchdowns for Sam Darnold, 3 sacks for Jonathan Grenard in his revenge game. So many revenge game angles in this game. Stephon Diggs, quiet day. Danielle Hunter, quiet day. Kamu Grugier-Hill, how about him having a crazy day to start it with an interception? And then Jonathan Grenard with his 3 sacks. That is what dominates the revenge angle here.
Okay, listen, Stephon Diggs had 10 catches for 94 yards. I wouldn't call that quiet, but I get Luke is on a high. Luke is on a high after watching that performance. You know what? Everybody's going to look at Sam Darnold. That's like the good, human resources story here. He had 4 touchdown passes. He's their story. But the defense is the story to me. 5 sacks in this game, multiple turnovers forced. I don't know if Minnesota is a Super Bowl contender, but I know that Minnesota Vikings defense is for real, and I feel pretty confident about that.
Brian Flores has done such a great job.
He needs another opportunity. I don't know if they'll give it to him, but he deserves it.
And I think if he keeps this going, I think he's going to get that opportunity. They didn't even have their first round pick for 2024, Dallas Turner, in this game. Right? You didn't even have your fastball young edge rusher that you drafted for these type of moments, right? Mm-hmm. The former teammate of Will Anderson, you wanted him to be in this game to get after CJ Stroud and collapse the 4 walls in the pocket and give him no escape routes to make the plays we saw him make against the Indianapolis Colts, against the Chicago Bears, on the move, still able to dot those I's and cross those T's to Nico Collins and create those back-breaking throws, right? But this defense plays. Brian Flores is so good at showing you one thing pre-snap and then a total different picture post-snap. You know what I mean? It looks like an amoeba defense. You got guys low in the box, moving around, and then they drop off the cover too. Post-snap. And it's like, I'm not surprised guys throw interceptions against this type of defense because you don't know exactly what you're going to get post-snap. And it's so difficult to force them to show their hand because of how well they're coached, how disciplined they're playing in the back end. They've got veterans back there like Byron, I think it's Byron Murphy, Harrison Smith. Like you have these guys who can communicate, that understand the scheme, understand what Coach Flores is asking of them. Now let's go out here and execute. And when you got a guy like Jonathan Grenard who said, okay, you let me go, things of that nature, I'm going to prove to you, you should never let me out of your locker room. And I'm going to get to the guy that I couldn't touch every day in practice because I'm on a different side of the ball of a different team. That's a big time win. And when you look at what Sam Darnold was able to do, 4 touchdowns, the connection between him and Justin Jefferson's there. They didn't even have Jordan Addison in this game. Right. I can't wait to see what happens when Addison's back healthy, which should be soon. You get TJ Hawkinson back late in the season. This is an offense that with a defense playing the way they're playing, Tyler, this is an offense that could possibly push them to the playoffs.
Two things. One, they might have the best set of play callers, like combination with Flores and then O'Connell on the offense. And then their offensive line. Minnesota's offensive line is good. And right now, that's hard to find in the NFL. But with that being said, some teams that were on life support, underdogs that came through, the Panthers and the Broncos. We got to talk about that. And the Eagles find a way against the red-hot Saints. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Look, I love DoorDash. Spent the weekend in Nashville. Got some wings delivered on DoorDash. They were absolutely fantastic. The DoorDash driver was fantastic. I mean, everything went absolutely perfect. And that's what you can come to expect from DoorDash. I mean, DoorDash always delivers. I mean that figuratively and literally, of course. And it's not just food. Of course, you can get a great meal on DoorDash, but you can get groceries. You can get retail items. I mean, basically anything that you need, you're going to be able to find it on DoorDash. Now that football is finally back, it means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. As a fan, my best advice to you fans is to make sure that you hit up DoorDash for the game. But when you do, make sure that you use the code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Limited time offer. Terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash. It's your door to game day greatness. Your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 plus to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol only available in select markets. All right, Dame. Big upset weekend in the NFL continues. We talked about the Ravens with the upset over the Cowboys. We talked about the Vikings being home dogs to the Texans and pulling it out to remain undefeated. The Vikings might be the biggest story in the NFL so far this year, but a couple of teams may not be as big of a story, but they deserve their credit. Talking about the Denver Broncos, talking about the Carolina Panthers, who benched Bryce Young and look like geniuses for it at the end of the day as Andy Dalton absolutely carves up the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to hear from Julian Council from Locked On Panthers about that one.
It's Andy Dalton's team. And if they even tried to go back to Bryce Young, they're going to have a mutiny on their hands. The players show you who the quarterback is. Nick Saban said that before. Plenty of coaches have said that before. When it comes to quarterback competitions, we never had a quarterback competition here in Carolina the last 2 years. It was always Bryce Young. That's what Reich and his staff wanted to do. That's what Canales and his staff were brought here to do, was have Bryce Young be the quarterback. There was never a competition. But the team showed you today and throughout the week who they want to be the quarterback in Carolina. Adam Thielen showed you last Sunday who he wants to be the quarterback in Carolina. Taylor Moton, who looked at Bryce Young sideways, showed you who he wants to be his quarterback here in Carolina. The team wants Dalton.
I mean, that is definitely inspired conversation there from Julian Council. He's laying it out, and Julian is a guy who spits it straight, man. And he's telling you that, you got to believe it. But just look, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. All of these additions, the Panthers add on the offensive line. They only give up 2 sacks in this game. The Panthers were able to run the ball, 131 total rushing yards, 114 from Chuba Hubbard. You look at Deontay Johnson, a guy who they trade for from the Steelers and bring in, who had been absent the first 2 weeks, 8 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown. Literally everybody, I mean, Hubbard dominating, 5 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown, added to what he did in the run game. I mean, every single player, even the defense for the Panthers came to play in this game. They were definitely an inspired team, and it's clear that they have more hope. I got to say, Dame, as somebody who really knows his college stuff, what do you think this means for Bryce Young now, though?
Honestly, I think this is going to be the exit out of Carolina. I know that they said, I think Jay Glazer reported before the games that they turned down 4 calls and trade offers for Bryce Young. Yeah, I mean, Diana Rossini over with the Athletic and New York Times said that basically it's a wrap. It's done for Bryce in Carolina, and I have a large Carolina Panther following living in the Carolinas, and I've been trying to tell them this was the right move. You can't evaluate the guys you brought. You traded for Deontay Johnson, right? You're gonna have to pay him after this season if he plays well enough. Well, you don't know if he's going to play well enough when you have a quarterback who's shell-shocked in the pocket, who's not throwing the ball, who doesn't view him as open when he is open, who's not getting the ball to the playmakers. You're going to have Jonathan Brooks, who you drafted in the second round, the running back out of Texas. He's going to be coming off the PUP soon. So you're going to get him acclimated and going in the run game. You have to get, Xavier Legette going as well. With people, I know the Panther fans will confuse, like, we're running the ball in this game. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, guys. When you can back defenses off, Andy Dalton had no problem stretching vertically up the field. The pass to, I think it was Thielen for the touchdown. He had a seam route for about 20, 30 yards to, I think, Tommy Trimble to put them in the low red zone. When you can push the safeties back and lighten the box, you can run the football a lot easier. It's a numbers game. And when I look at what Andy Dalton was able to do, and like Julian said, you saw Adam Thielen, who you rarely ever saw have outbursts. He was so upset last week, pissed off, snatched off his helmet when Bryce didn't throw him the ball. You saw players just not looking happy to be out there with the young man, and he's a great person. I think he's a guy, honestly, that needs to be in that Shanahan McVay style offense.
I agree.
I'll be completely honest with you, and I've been saying this for the longest. You put Bryce Young in San Fran instead of Brock Purdy, you're going to get very similar results. He can work in that role.
I think a team that makes sense. What about the Los Angeles Rams? Matthews. I mean, I know that was, what was it? Chase Daniels threw out that three-way trade. The three-way trade was crazy, but the Rams should definitely be interested with Stafford at his age and everything like that. But it may be the end for Bryce Young in Carolina, but it is just the beginning for Bo Nix in Denver as they get a major upset over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, winning 26-7. My guys Cody and Sayer from Locked On Broncos broke that down.
Really, the Broncos, they kind of sliced and diced up a little bit in the pass game, the short to the intermediate stuff against Tampa Bay. And look, I find it refreshing that this is coming off a week where you see the report come out that the Pittsburgh Steelers, their cornerbacks, they were laughing that the Broncos had such a limited playbook because of Bo Nix. What do, though? They come out and Bo slings it. And that first drive alone, that very first opening series, he had the great 17-yard back shoulder there to Cortland Sutton on the left sideline. I love to see that. But, man, he has a nice little pop shot there to Josh Reynolds against a cover 2. I can't wait to break that down in the film room this week. But just overall confidence, and I think his ball placement was pretty good.
Okay, Bo Nix, 216 yards, took 0 sacks, completed passes to 9 wide receivers. I mean, Bo Nix didn't throw any touchdown passes in this game, but he managed Sean Payton's offense. Like this, when Sean Payton was laughing at the NFL, this is what we saw. And I've been very critical of Sean Payton, very critical of the Broncos. I'm not a believer in them, but they deserve all their credit because to go on the road like this and take down a hot Tampa Bay team, what an incredible upset for Denver, and they needed it bad.
No, 100%. It was a 3-phase type of game for Denver. Their defense played lights out.
Look at the run defense.
They did
91 total rushing yards.
They picked off, I believe, Baker Mayfield in this game. They got 7 sacks against him. He had a QBR of 10.1 in this game, and he was at home. 160 yards passing on 33 attempts. He averaged less than 5 yards per attempt. So the defense played lights out. They got some, and crazy enough for my college football fans out there, Tyler Beatty, who was at the University of Missouri. He was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. I think they should have kept him in my honest opinion. He's kind of a jitterbug, explosive, one-cut type of guy who can catch the ball in the backfield as well. For Bo Nix, just playing just playing efficient football, right? 6
Right.
yards per attempt. He had the rushing touchdown. He added 9 carries for 47 yards. That's what you kind of want to see from Bo Nix right now, because regardless of what, they're going to have to go. If Bo Nix, not if, but you made your bet with Bo Nix. You drafted him top 15. You're going to deal with him for the next 2 years at least, right? What you're going to have to do going into the next offseason, especially through the draft, add some more receiving help for this young man.
Yes.
Get him some more help. Cortland Sutton, and that's where, for me, where Bo is consistently getting the ball down the field to that big body receiver. Start back, like I just talked about, backing those defenses off, because if you start checking it down too much, they're going to start playing kind of a cloud coverage. You're going to start seeing guys trigger down hills. You're going to get big hits on your receivers or pick sixes. So you want to be able to back them off, hit those cover 2 hole shots. If you're going to sit in cover 2, he has all the physical tools to do it. So this was a big time win for them, man. 26-7 on the road. I love what I saw from him.
Yeah, you got to give him a ton of credit. I mean, Bo Nix was brought in just to be efficient, run the Sean Payton offense. And he did that perfectly against the Buccaneers. So you got to give it a lot of credit there. The Philadelphia Eagles also got a big upset win over maybe the hottest team in the NFL, in the New Orleans Saints. That was a barn burner of a game. We're going to break that down. And then the Atlanta Falcons had a great chance to knock off the Kansas City Chiefs, and they just couldn't bring it home. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It is America's #1 sportsbook, after all. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats. You could view live play-by-play and so much more. And it's all on the same page where you make your bets. It's an all-encompassing hub for NFL action. And right now, you'll get started on FanDuel with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with a $5 bet. Make sure that you head to America's #1 sportsbook today. That's FanDuel.com. All right, Dame, we're going to cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. Talked about some major upsets: the Ravens over the Cowboys, the Vikings over the Texans, the Panthers, the Broncos get big upsets. But another team that pulled off an upset that really, really needed it was the Philadelphia Eagles, who took down the New Orleans Saints in a very, very close football game that honestly was pretty boring until the fourth quarter. It was 3-0 for 3 quarters. And then the Eagles put up 15 in the fourth. The Saints put up 9 in the fourth, and the Eagles win the game 15-12. We're going to go to our guys from Locked On Eagles to break that down.
The Philadelphia Eagles overcome losing their starting right tackle, their right guard, and both wide receivers. Bad decisions from their head coach, and they beat the red-hot New Orleans Saints 15-12. I'm Louis DiBiase, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast. If you thought after last year's collapse this Eagles team did not have fight anymore, think again. This defense especially battled against the #1 passing attack heading into this game. The run defense was finally fixed with that 5-man front. Jalen Carter wrecked this ball game, but so did Jordan Davis, Milton Williams. The edge rushers got to Derek Carr consistently today. That defense, hats off. They kept this offense in it when they continued to shoot themselves in the foot, and that was mainly because of Nick Sirianni's decision-making. Jalen Hurts, the turnovers have to stop, but man, was he special. Again, he's down 4 starters, and he drives them down the field anyway for the go-ahead touchdown. I'm still hell-bent on Jalen Hurts being special.
Okay, the 2 things that really stand out to me here is the Saints' offensive line got pushed around. And going into the season, that was a big area of concern for the Saints, is their offensive line. But through 2 weeks, they looked fantastic. You know what I mean? But everybody was high on Clint Kubiak. He was doing a great job as the offensive coordinator. Now you got to see it for a couple of weeks, and maybe the Eagles were able to dial that back a little bit. Maybe the Saints coming back down to earth. But on the other side, Saquon Barkley is just special. I mean, we could talk about Jalen Hurts all we want, but Saquon Barkley 17 carries, 147 yards, 8.6 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, including a 65-yard touchdown to really get the Eagles going. Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback, good quarterback, whatever you want to call it. But Saquon Barkley is special.
Tyler, what's the phrase? Worth the price of admission. That is Saquon Barkley. That is
Absolutely.
The fact that you paid him, the Giants didn't want to pay him, and for him to play the way he's played to start this season, right? If it wasn't for to me, it was a bonehead call on Monday night to even throw the ball when they couldn't stop him from running.
Yeah, insane.
That was a weird call, but nonetheless, outside of that, he's been special for them. And that 65-yard run, he looked like rookie Saquon Barkley. The burst and watching that play, I watched that play live as it happened, and I was like, "There's no way he gets out of this," because it's like there's bodies around him closing in, and this is what we talk about: angle breaking speed. He breaks through the line of scrimmage, breaks through the second level of the defense. And he just outruns everyone. But I got to give credit to Dallas Goedert, 10 catches, 170 yards.
Yep.
When you don't have AJ Brown because of the hamstring, and we don't know how severe or when he's going to be able to come back. Hamstrings are very tricky. They can linger all season. Then you have Devonta Smith, which the referees got to take some onus on the hit he took. That play was dead. Forward progress was stopped. Blow the whistle, but you allow them to drive him back. Then you have a defensive lineman who come in head first and basically knock the kid out for a second. And you know what I mean? So he's out for the game. And Jalen Hurts has to figure out who are we getting the ball to now? Jahan Dotson and was it Paris Campbell? Like, who are we throwing the ball to? And Dallas Goedert came up big late in that fourth quarter. The mesh concept where they ran the two Saints defenders into each other. He sprung him wide open, and the yards after the catch. There was a big time with Jalen Carter wrecked that game. Like, he absolutely wrecked it.
It was incredible.
And to your point about the New Orleans Saints offensive line, they looked okay for the first 2 weeks because they weren't they were running the ball very well, and they weren't in true drop back sets as a result of it. It was play action pass. The Eagles came in and said, no, we're not going to let you run the ball. Now, Derek Carr, you have to drop back. Trevor Penning, you have to pass protect. Talise Fuaga, rookie that's never played left tackle every day in your life, you have to pass protect. And we have the guys that can stress you on all 4 downs in those third down situations. This was a gritty win that you look back on weeks from now. We're getting close to the playoffs. He said that was one of those wins that kind of sprung them forward and got them going.
The Eagles needed like a vibes win. Yes. Like, since last year, their collapse and even the way it's gone the first 2 weeks, like, they just needed something to like bring the team together. Guys are down. Guys are stepping up. Like, it's a tough fight. We're underdogs. We're on the road. All that. They needed this desperately to make sure that the chemistry within the team stayed in a good spot. Talking about good chemistry, the Falcons do have some good chemistry. It's crazy. It was such a crazy weekend in the NFL that a great Sunday night football game gets pushed to the last segment here for us. But the Falcons were not able to get the job done, even though it looked like they were in great position for most of the game. We're going to hear from my guy, Aaron Freeman from Locked On Falcons.
The Falcons come up short on Sunday night. I'm Aaron Freeman with Locked On Falcons. The Falcons lost a close competitive game to the Kansas City Chiefs, 22-17 on Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs' ground game fueled an offense that dominated time of possession, possessing the ball for more than 12 minutes more than the Falcons, and the Falcons just couldn't take advantage of their limited opportunities with 2 final possessions in a position late in the game to make the go-ahead score. They came up short, once on a pair of underthrown balls from Kirk Cousins to Drake London and Kyle Pitts in the end zone, and then on another pair of rushers that got bottled up in short yardage. The Falcons will get another chance to get their first home win of 2024 next week versus their bitter rivals, the New Orleans Saints, in a battle that could help decide NFC South playoff race. For more coverage of the Atlanta Falcons, follow Locked On Falcons, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, that's going to be an excellent game. But really the thing to me is, in the second half of this game, the Chiefs defense just locked it down. Like, that's what happened. And again, Patrick Mahomes gets all the love, but this Chiefs defense, man, Steve Spagnuolo just has these boys working together. Everything is flowing. And in that second half, the outside zone run, they took it away. Kirk Cousins wasn't as I guess, clean as he was in the first half, probably because the run game wasn't going as well. You know, it's all tied together there. But Patrick Mahomes can get all the credit in the world, but this Chiefs defense, they're continuing to look like the team that they were on defense at the end of the season last year. It's just such a huge factor, even though Mahomes gets all the love.
Yeah, Mahomes, he's the media darling. He's the fan darling. But this defense has been one of the best for the last 2 years. And they don't, no matter what Mahomes has, like people say, well, how do you win a Super Bowl with the weapons he had last year? That defense, that's how. You know what I mean? When you have a defense that can stop, like if Chris Jones doesn't get to Brock Purdy in the Super Bowl and throw Brock Purdy off, you lose that game. That defense is why they won a Super Bowl. It wasn't just Pat Mahomes and his brilliance in late game situations. It's the fact that you have a defense that can keep him in games when the offense is not rolling. And guess what? It's 3 weeks. Week 1, they said, man, this is the worst that the Chiefs are going to look this season. The Chiefs have looked the exact same for 3 straight weeks. I'm sorry. I'm not a believer in this offense just yet. And eventually you're going to face a team that's going to be able to put some points up. And now you have to do the same. And in this game, I'm going to be honest with you, Tyler, watching that game late, that pass that Aaron talked about to Kyle Pitts, it was underthrown, but that was pass interference. Like, you got the DB with his arms. He's bear hugging. You know what I mean? Kyle Pitts at the catch point before the ball gets there. The referees and the back judge has to look at that and throw the flag. It's like, hey, that's a flag. Let's go ahead and put the ball at the 1, pass interference. And that game is probably, tied, and we're going into overtime. But the Falcons, for me, they have to figure out what the offense is going to look like when they can't get Bijan going. When you can't get the run game going, Kirk Cousins, can you carry this passing attack? You have some big body weapons. Darnell Mooney has had a resurgence with Kirk Cousins in the slot. You have enough pieces. Can you get it done when we can't get Bijan 20 carries for 100 yards? I don't know if Kirk Cousins is at that stage of his career to be able to do that.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know if he's ever been a guy who can do that without a competent run game. He off that play action, that's always been his thing. But what an incredible week 3 in the NFL. If I learned 2 things on tonight's show, it's don't count out the underdogs and Dame hates referees. That's what I know for sure. But all jokes aside, thank you for coming on, Dame. Definitely do appreciate it. I am your host, Tyler Rowland, the Madman. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. Make sure that you step into the barbershop later this afternoon with Tony Wiggins as he chops it up on all the great topics coming out of week 3. But that's going to do it for us today. As I tell you guys every single episode, stay safe out there.